all. Hope you all are fine, good and healthy at home. Students, let me introduce myself. I am Sangita Tripathi. Today I am going to teach you a lesson from class 6 supplementary book. What is the name of the lesson? The lesson is The Old Clock Shop. Okay students, you all might have heard about this word clock, isn't it? You all are having clocks in your home, that is wall clock, then table clock. If you want to see the time, where you will see? In your wrist, that is the wristwatch, okay. When you enter any shop, the clock shop, what you find? So many varieties of clocks you will find there, in different shapes, colors, very beautiful clocks, okay students. So the chapter is The Old Clock Shop. This story is a very interesting story about Mr. Ray, how he trapped in a bad situation and how he overcome from that situation. Let's start the lesson. It's Christmas Eve and closing time for shop. Students, what is Christmas Eve? You all might have heard about the word Christmas. As we know, Christmas is a festival celebrated by Christians all over the world. It is a festival, birthday of Jesus Christ. Okay, but what is Christmas Eve? Christmas Eve, a day or night before the Christmas, that is on 24th of December. And we celebrate Christmas on which day? That is on 25th December. Okay, so the story revolves around on Christmas Eve, that is on the 24th of December. So the lesson is, it's Christmas Eve and closing time for shops. Okay, that day was 24th of December and it is night time, the closing time for shop. It was a marketplace and everyone is closing their shop to go to their home and to prepare for the next day. Ray's old clock shop is still open, but Mr. Ray, his old clock shop is still open. That means what? There is a light. It means he is doing something in the shop. Two shoppers called at his late hour. At that time, night time, two shoppers. That means, what do you mean by shoppers? Shoppers means the buyers or the customers. Two shoppers called at this late hour. Christmas Eve had arrived. What do you mean by arrived? Christmas Eve reached. Okay. As last minute shoppers were going home, a thick white sheet of snow lay over Salt Lake City, USA. Okay. The last minute, all the shoppers, the buyers, the customers, they are going home back, and everywhere, what you see, everywhere it is a white sheet of snow. Why? Because it is a winter season. And because of the snowfall, everywhere, the trees, the house, then everywhere there was a snow. It's all covered with snow, and it is over the Salt Lake City in USA. Where is Salt Lake City? It is in USA. Yet the lights were still burning in the old clock shop. Yet the lights were still burning. What the meaning of still burning? That means on. That the lights were still on in the old clock shop. As Mr. Ray, its old deaf owner, worked on a clock he had sold that day. Who is the owner of that shop? Mr. Ray. Okay, Mr. Ray is the owner of the shop. Mr. Ray, who is the owner of the old clock shop. Okay, he was a deaf owner. What do you mean by deaf? Deaf, a person who cannot hear. A person who cannot hear. He was working on a clock he had sold that day. That day he had sold some clock to someone and it was not working, I think. So he was repairing that clock. So students, he is in hurry. He want to finish all his work. He also want to go to home to be with your family. Having finished his work, Ray stood up and was on his way to the back room when a cold rush of air from the front door hit the back of his neck. That means he wanted to go to home. He stood up. Someone has opened the door because it was a winter season. The door was all closed. Someone has opened the door, and because of that, the cold air blew into the room. He turned to meet a last-minute shopper. He just turned to see who is there, but his old wise eyes told him that this was not a shopper. as he saw two men are there, he saw, as his old eyes saw that he was not a shopper, because he was wise, because he was old, he had an experience about her life, and he came to know they were not shopper, they were not the buyer. They came here for some other purpose. Might be they want to rob the Mr. Ray's cash. He saw two men, one of his 20s and other closer to 50. There he saw these two men standing there, one in his 20s. In his 20s means, student, what is the meaning of in his 20s? His age must be between 20 to 29. The other closer to 50. The younger man remained at the door. The older man approached the counter with no sign of friendliness in his eyes. So, what the younger man do? He just remained at the door. He stood at the door, near the door. And the older man, the man who is near the 50 age, approached. What do you mean by approached? Came near the counter. It came near the Mr. Ray's counter with no sign of friendliness in his eyes. What do you mean by friendliness? There is no sign of any friendshipness. Okay, he doesn't. The appearance was he was not friendly. Okay, Ray was able to hide his growing fear as he slowly pushed a notepad and a pencil across the counter. Now Ray understood that he was in bad situation. Okay, the men, their motives are not good. They entered here for some other purpose. Ray was able to hide his growing fear. He doesn't want to show his fear in front of them. If he show, they can do something wrong with the Mr. Ray. He slowly pushed a notepad and a pencil across the counter. Means why he did so? Because Mr. Ray was a deaf person. He can't hear. So, whatever the message he wanted to communicate with others, he noted down in a notepad, and with the help of pencil, he smiled at the unfriendly face, then pointed his ears and shook his head from side to side. After giving the notepad to the person, he smiled at an unfriendly way. It means that he knew that these two fellows are here for some other intention. Just he gave a smile and then pointed his ears and shook his head from side to side, and pointed his ear and shook his head from side to side. It thought he can't able to. He just want to say to the person that he can't able to hear because he was deaf. A quick look of surprise changed the man's face as he studied the notepad, then turned and said something to his friend. After seeing this thing, after the person come to know that, that older person come to know that this man is deaf and dumb also, a quick surprise changed the man's face, and he just turned to say something to his friend who was standing near the door. He was happy. He wanted to know, when he come to know that he was deaf and dumb, he can't able to shout, he can very easily they can rob the Mr. Ray's shop and all the other valuable things. Ray used the chance to look closely at the man, paying attention to the shape of the gun and a restless hand in his man's right coat pocket. When the person turned this particular time, Ray get a chance. They used the chance to look closely at the man, paying attention to the shape of a gun and a restless hand in the man's right coat pocket. Means at that particular time, Ray got a time or a chance to look closely to the man. And what he saw something like a gun, something shape of a gun in his pockets, and a worried hand in the man's right pocket. That means the man is very restless, his hand is restless, it's going on movement, and anger boiled within him. Ray, just in anger, he was in anger. He doesn't know what to do in this situation, but it was kept down by an inner voice said, "Be still." He doesn't want to show his anger to them. He was in panic, he must be in some trouble. So his inner voice said, "Be still, Ray." It means be calm, be relaxed, be cool. So what he did? He wrote on the notepad, "May I help you?" To overcome from the situation, what he did? He just took the notepad, and in the notepad he wrote that may I help you. Why? Because he wanted to communicate with that person. He was a deaf person, and while communicating he always used his notepad and pencil. May I help you? For the first time the older man looked directly at Ray and smiled. Okay, here then the person, when he saw Ray is asking, may I help you, in a very humble way, in a very polite way, he is asking, not asking, but he just wrote down, he has written this sentence in a notepad. The cruel mocking smile, a cruel mocking, cruel smile, cunning smile. Mocking means make fun of someone. Mocking means make fun of someone. A cruel mocking smile, they both understood why was there. He gave a very cunning smile, very mocking smile to Mr. Ray. That means, I am here to rob you. They both understood why was he there, why his pen remained at the door. Mr. Ray also comes to know why his other fellow was there at the door, why he is not coming inside the door, why he was not coming inside the shop. It must, because if someone will come, then he will instruct, he will say, give sign to the, they both understood why he was there. Mr. Ray and the person, the middle-aged person, the 50 years old person, he come to know that why he was there. His friend remained at the door, because if he was in a bad situation, the person also, his friend is standing on the door, near the door, outside the shop, he want just to, if someone is coming to the shop, just to give a sign that someone is there. That's why the person is standing in the door. They looked like a band who were down on their luck, now were ready to try something they would. Ray knew that something would be going to be wrong. They came here to rob Mr. Ray's all his cash and all valuable things. Ray knew that something would be going to be wrong. They would come here to rob Mr. Ray's all his cash and all the valuable items from the shop. Ray knows that his visitors are in need. He accepts an old watch in exchange for a good sum of money. The message of peace and goodwill spread everywhere as the old clock chimed Merry Christmas. The clocks ticked on. That means there was a sound, the clock ringing, tick tock, and it also means that Ray's heart was also beating very fast because of this situation. Ray calmly wrote another message. He doesn't want to show his anger, or he doesn't want to show his helplessness in front of them. So what he did, he very calmly, very quietly, without any hurry, wrote another message. Have you come to pick up a clock or watch? In the message, the notepad, he wrote, have you come to pick up a clock or watch? Means what? What you want to buy, what you want from the shop, a clock or a watch. Then he pointed to the lone boat filled with hangings. Then he pointed to the lone boat filled with hanging clocks. The word like loan, that means what? He also giving things in a credit. Okay, loan means in credit. So in this situation, Ray want to come out from this situation as soon as possible, because he want to go to home. So he pointed to the lone boat with hanging clocks and pocket watches. He was not a pawnbroker. That means if you came here to buy something and if you don't have the money to buy, I will give you that clock or something, what you want, whatever you want, I will give you in a loan. So he was not a pawnbroker. What do you mean by pawnbroker? One who lends money in some exchange. Okay, if you give something to me, I will give you money. He was not a pawnbroker, but at the same time couldn't say no to the needy people. He was very kind, he was very generous person and ready to help others. So he never said to the needy people, as he come to know that it is a festival time. Ray was a very kind fellow. He came to know that this person might having some problem. It is a Christmas time, there must be some problem in their family, in need of money. So he couldn't say no to the needy people who placed their old watches or clock before him for anything they could get. Okay, whatever they would be there when the owner wanted them back, and all he is ready to give that particular things to their owner back. Okay, if someone the person come and take to collect those items back, he was ready to give at the same price he had paid with no interest. Then the older man seemed to feel a little easier, took out his hand from his pocket and quickly looked at the watch on his wrist. How much will you give me for this? Suddenly there was a extreme changes comes in the older man's eyes. The older man seemed to feel very easier. Now he's very easy because he come to know the man, Mr. Ray, is ready to give things on a credit. What he did, he took out his hand from his pockets and quickly looked at the watch on his wrist. And suddenly he asked Mr. Ray, noted down in the notepad, how much will you give me for this? The man wrote. Ray noticed a little shame in the grey eyes looking at him. Ray noticed there was a shame in the old man's that fellow eyes. It was now he was feeling shame that he came here to rob Mr. Ray's shop. And this man was so kind and so generous and so helping. The watch was nothing special yet had great power. They both knew that, Mr. Ray and that fellow knew that the watch had nothing special. It's very ordinary watch, but it had a great power. What is the meaning of this word, great power? Because this watch helped Mr. Gray to come out from this situation, and also the person also get money from this watch. Okay, so it is a great power. This watch had a great power. It was something to exchange a way out of bad situation. Means what? As I told, it has a great power. It means it is something which comes out of a bad situation. Knowing that great need had brought the man to his shop in the first place, Ray asked, how much do you need for it? Now Mr. Ray came to know that he was a very needy person. He is in need of money very much, and so he just asked the man by noting the message in the notepad, how much do you need for it? How much money you want for this watch, for your watch in exchange? The reply came back on the notepad. He had written that whatever its worth, whatever the value of the watch. Worth means having value. Okay, what is the value of this old ordinary watch? Whatever you want. Ray reached into his cash box, pulled out a $50 note and passed it into the man's hand. As they shook hands, Ray looked into the man's eyes. They seemed to say thank you. Here Ray reached the cash box and he took $50 and gave it to the man's hand, that old man's hand. As they shook hands, they looked into the man's eyes. They seemed to say thank you. What you want to give me, just give it to me. Here this made the man's very happy because this was the moment when unfriendly face of the visitors become very truly friendly. Okay, students, they both knew the watch. Both Ray and that other person knew that the watch was not so much of value. Before turning to leave, the man wrote, I will be back to pick it up as soon as I can. Before going to leave the shop, the man again wrote a message. Here he mentioned that he will be back to collect his watch again as soon as possible. Merry Christmas, and he wished Mr. Ray Merry Christmas. The little story ended on the half hour with the clock striking all together. Timepieces which had been looking so silently all the while rang out the time with such feeling that even Ray thought he could hear them. Here comes the end of the story, and here the bell strikes everywhere. It's Christmas, which spreads the message of hope and peace. The bad time had passed and everywhere there was a peace. The music of clock produced is so sweet, even though the Ray can also feel it. We know that student that Ray was a deaf person, but then also he could feel the music of the clock. We should then the timeless message of peace on earth, goodwill towards all was felt by three men who stood in the old clock shop. There comes, we should have goodwill towards everyone and help them in their needs, and peace should prevail everywhere on earth. This is the message of the lesson. Students, turn page 14 for question number 1. What is the first question? What made Ray think the visitor was not really a shopper? The answer is, Ray was deaf and dumb but a good judge of men. His old wise eyes told him that the new visitors to his shop at the late hour was not a shopper or customer. There was no friendliness in his eyes. Second number question. Why do you think he had come to the shop? The visitor had come to the shop to buy anything. Perhaps his intention was to loot the owner of his cash. He was in dire need of money. Number 3. How did Ray communicate with him? Answer is, Ray could neither speak nor hear, so he communicated with his customers by writing his message on a notepad. The visitor also wrote his reply on paper. Number 4 question. What do you think the man said to his friend who waited at the door? The older man pointed to his ears and shook his head from side to side. Thus, he conveyed to his younger companion that the shop owner could neither hear nor speak. Number 5. Ray was not a pawnbroker. Why then he lent money to people in exchange for their old watches and clocks? Answer is, Ray was not a pawnbroker, a person who lends money on security of some item. He did not lend money on interest. He was, however, kind and helpful. He couldn't say no to the needy people. Number 6 question. The watch was nothing special and yet had great power. In what sense did it have great powers? Answer is, the watch was just an ordinary, but it had the power to pull a person out of a bad situation. The older man got the money he needed without hurting Ray. The generous shopkeeper also escaped physical injury. In this sense, the watch had great powers. Number 7. Do you think the man could ever come back to pick up the watch? Answer is, no. It is very unlikely that the older man would ever come back to pick up his watch. He had, after all, got a price higher than the watch was worth for. Number 8. Why did the unfriendly face of the visitor turn friendly? The unfriendly face of the visitor turned friendly when he got a $50 note for his ordinary watch. He felt obliged and happy. So student, here we finished the lesson. Hope you liked the story. So stay healthy, stay safe at your home. Thank you.